So maybe Mataji, you can now move this way, because otherwise you do not have space behind. Those who can move, they can move. Mataji, you're sitting there like a rock, so you won't move. Let the rest move around. The others can move. Right? Okay, good. Yes, yes. You have to move. Otherwise, the devotees don't have space then.
Thank you.
Please settle. Everybody can come forward. It's easier. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a nice shloka, and this shloka is in the 6th canto, 16th chapter, 31st verse. 6:16:31. Whenever we speak about deities, this shloka is considered extremely important, because this shloka has been actually quoted by our previous acharyas many times when we speak about deity worship. Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, all these three Goswamis specifically have spoken on these verses. And we must understand that there's a great significance that Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami have actually spoken on these verses. Why? Because the chosen deities and the worshipable deities of Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami are Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Sri Radha Govindaji and Sri Sri Radha Gopinathji. So these are the three principal deities in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. All the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradayas, Prabhupada says in Chaitanya Leela, they eagerly worship these three deities. It doesn't matter whether they have them at home. That is not the important requirement. The important requirement is to understand what these deities do for us and why they are so important to us. Deity worship is not sentimentalism. This is the first thing we should understand. Srila Prabhupada instituted deity worship into our movement so that one can have direct relationship on the platform of service to the deities. By serving the deities very lovingly, following the instructions that are actually given to us by Shastras on how to worship the deities, these deities keep us fixed in spiritual life. Sometimes the problem with many of the Hindu households, for example, is that they have deities, but they are not worshipping them. Because worship cannot be worship that is done whimsically. It cannot be, I want to do something and I do, and I don't want to do something, I do. There are very strict and important regulations for serving the deities. Sometimes we also hear that the word deity is not even used for deities. We don't even use the word murti for deities. Sometimes we have our own deities at home, and when you go to houses where they have them, the deities are very often known as idols or statues. And our acharyas tell us that they are definitely not idols. Idol is Sir Winston Churchill's statue in Trafalgar Square in the UK. That's an idol, because there is no connection, there is no worship. The deity is not given food offerings in the morning, in the daytime, in the evening. The deity is not bathed the way it is given Abhishek. So therefore, idols have no connection with spiritual life. This is very important. Even if you have a deity at home but you're not worshipping the deity, that is also considered offensive, because it's not correctly receiving the deities. So while Srila Prabhupada gave us deity worship, he was also very clear to tell us that the deities are non-different from Krishna. This is very, very important. Very often when we have deities at home, because of our own lack of devotional service or devotional purity, we don't realize that the home belongs to the deities. And it is not our home. Therefore, whatever behavior that we exhibit in the presence of the deities are actually watched and witnessed by them. Deities are very often known as sakshis. They are witnesses in our house. And even though you may be in a room and the deity is in the hall, the deity knows exactly what you're doing in the room. What is your consciousness in the room? How you're thinking in the room. That is why if we really want to have deities at home, there is a very deep connection between worshipping deities and inculcating proper Vaishnava behavior. Because it is the behavior of the Vaishnavas that attract the deities. We may be very simple in our worship and not opulent, but Krishna doesn't want the opulence in a house particularly. In the temples, Srila Prabhupada wanted great opulence. But in the houses, he wanted deity worship to be simple. Simple. It should not be elaborate. But what is equally important in deity worship is to understand the tattva behind the deity worship. That is very important. So there is a deep connection, Bhagavatam tells us, between how we behave in the house and how much the deities will be pleased by our behavior. They will reciprocate with us based on that. His Holiness Narsingha Maharaj, when he was here many years ago, in one of the houses, I forget, he was there for a deity welcoming ceremony of Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. I forget the house. But I remember what Maharaj clearly said. Maharaj said that Sri Sri Gaur Nitai are so merciful as deities that they live on a diet of simply chanting of the holy names. Even if you don't have enough time to give elaborate prasad, you must actually be chanting the holy names at home. That's the point Maharaj was putting across. That actually, we may have very beautiful deities, but in the end, if our chanting is defective, if we are not reading Srila Prabhupada's books, if we are not interacting with each other as devotees should be in the house, then the deities may be there, but we are not feeling their reciprocation. Not because they don't want to reciprocate with us, but because our behavior has disqualified us from actually reciprocating with them. This is very important. So in 6:16:31 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chitraketu Maharaj is a great devotee of the Lord. And you all remember that he was actually given the opportunity to actually take darshan of the Lord in his beautiful form of Sankarshan. And how did that happen? It happened because initially Chitraketu Maharaj was very much caught up with sense gratification. Sense gratification means we want to enjoy separately from Krishna. And what did he want in the form of sense gratification? He wanted a child. So actually sense gratification can take many forms. As long as we want to conduct an activity that has nothing to do with Krishna and that is separate from Krishna, and we want to enjoy that activity separately from Krishna, then that activity is a fruitive activity. That activity will bind us to this material world. That is what 3.9 of Bhagavad Gita tells us, right? It is actually going to be binding. Lokoyam karma bandhanaha. It will bind us. So what happened was Chitraketu Maharaj desired greatly for a son, even though he was a very noble king and he was actually devotionally inclined, but he was caught by the fruitive intentions of having a son. And so when Angira Rishi came, and when he heard that the king was despondent and the kingdom was despondent with the king, he thought, let him have his wish then. But he told him a condition. He said that if you have this son will be both a source of misery. No, he started with joy. Both a source of joy and misery. And Chitraketu Maharaj did not understand that point. But I think we should understand that point deeper. Every time we have children, husbands, spouses, family, wives, we don't realize that along with the happiness that comes from them, which is material, there will always come the equal amount of sadness, frustration, and difficulties. It is natural. It is part of this material world. But to ignore them, to discard them, to renounce them is artificial. It is not Krishna consciousness. What is Krishna consciousness is to serve them. No matter how difficult they may be, no matter how much they may be entrenched in sense gratification, our duty is not to abandon them, but our duty is to serve them in the capacity of devotees. So Chitraketu Maharaj did not realize the import of this. He thought the child will become the source of his happiness. But we know that nothing in this world except Krishna consciousness will become the source of our true happiness. Everything will come and go, but only Krishna will stay. And Krishna and the association of devotees is the most pleasing thing in this world. You see, having so many devotees here today is so different Supposing Sundar Gaur Prabhu and Sham Gopika Mataji, if you had just a family event with the deities, it would be very different. But calling all the devotees is a very different feeling. We all become more fixed. So Chitraketu Maharaj did not realize it, but he had a child. And because the child was the subject of envy of the queens, the child was killed in the night by the queens. It was poisoned. And when the child was poisoned and Chitraketu Maharaj came to find out in the morning, he was completely devastated. This is how, when we place our expectations for happiness on all the sense objects and hope that they will please us, we will become very, very frustrated. This is a very important point we should remember. And this is what happened to Chitraketu Maharaj. He became frustrated, he became very, very sad, and he became very down. So Narada Muni, the great sage Narada Muni, came back with Angira Rishi. And when they came back, they now gave Chitraketu Maharaj enlightenment. How? He actually summoned the soul of the child to inhabit the body of the child again. And then he told the child, wake up, my child, because your father who is here is calling for you. And when the child woke up and he looked around at Chitraketu Maharaj felt a sense of elation, seeing his child alive. But when the child opened his mouth to say the first words, Chitraketu Maharaj became realized. Because the child told Narada Muni, which father, Narada, and in which life? This is the question he asked. Which father, Narada, and in which life? And then it dawned on Chitraketu Maharaj that the source of his happiness that he was looking for was actually in the wrong place. And therefore, that is why we have deities in the house. The deities in the house, we welcome them not just into our house. Bhagavatam tells us we welcome them into our hearts. And therefore, our hearts must change. And our hearts must be ready to receive Krishna. If our hearts are filled with anarthas, if it's filled with lust, anger, greed, it's filled with thoughts of desires which have nothing to do with Krishna, then how can Krishna come into our hearts? He may be in the deity form, but the important thing is, are we manifesting that love for him in our hearts? That makes the picture complete. So then Chitraketu Maharaj was given a beautiful mantra by Narada Muni to chant. And in a few days, because of his purity of heart, and because he was repentant of how he felt, Chitraketu Maharaj had darshan. Just like we took darshan of Radha Gopinath, Chitraketu Maharaj had darshan of the beautiful form of Sankarshan. And this beautiful form of Sankarshan was so nice that this shloka becomes very important. Tad darshana dvasta samasta kilbishaha swasta malanta karano bhyayan munihi pravriddha bhaktya pranaya shrulochanaha prahrishta roma namat adi purusham. I'll read the translation and you please repeat it. As soon as Maharaj Chitraketu saw the Supreme Lord, he was cleansed of all material contamination and situated in his original Krishna consciousness, being completely purified. So this is the first thing that happens when we actually take darshan of the deities. Bhagavatam tells us that the moment we see Krishna, when we see Radha Gopinath, for example, what really happens to us is our hearts are being cleansed of all material contamination. That's why sometimes devotees who have their deities in their house for a long time, sometimes they tell me that after so many years, we just walk in and out. We see them there, but we walk in and out. And in one sense, we see them, but we don't see them also. You know, there's a difference between seeing and not seeing, right? In Bhagavatam, the word darshan is used. Darshan means to actually take darshan. It means the Lord is giving audience and you are taking darshan. So the other word opposite to darshan, not opposite in the sense of the different meaning, but the reciprocal thing is ikshanam and darshan. When the Lord gives darshan, you must do ikshanam. Ikshanam means you seek the audience of the Lord. There is a difference. So it's one thing just to see Krishna, but it's another thing to seek audience with him. So the next time you go home now and you have the deities, You stand before the deities even for half a minute, but you tell them, my lord or lordships, please, I'm seeking your audience. Please give your darshan. That is the mood to approach the deities. Give us your ikshanam so that we can have your darshan. So that is what Chitraketu Maharaj did. When you do that, without fail, whatever material contaminations of anger, greed, lust, pride, all these things, they will be washed off. And if you do this every day, just imagine how much progress we make in Krishna consciousness. But we must do it without taking it for granted. That is very important. So Chitraketu Maharaj has shown us the science. The science is to take ikshanam of the deity, and then the deity gives you darshan. And when he gives you darshan, whatever contamination in the heart which is material is gone. Try it. Go home and do it. Even now when Radha Gopinath gives us darshan, before we take darshan of him, ask him for ikshanam. And you see how the darshan will be. It will be very different. Why? Because the moment that happened, two things happened. He became freed of material contamination, and just as important, he became situated in his original Krishna consciousness. So remember, two things happen to us when we take darshan with ikshanam. One, material contamination goes. In place of material contamination, there is original Krishna consciousness. In other words, we understand, right, what is our relationship to Krishna. That is the meaning of being situated in original consciousness. And what is our relationship with Krishna? That we are always servants of the servants of the servants. And 15:7 of Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamso Jiva Loke, right? Jiva Bhutaha Sanatanaha. We are always eternally part and parcel of Krishna. That is to understand we are originally situated in Krishna consciousness. We are not this person's husband, that person's father, this person's daughter. These are secondary material considerations. The actual consideration is that we are actually servants of the Lord and we are part and parcel of Him. We can never be separate from Krishna, and Krishna can never be separate from us, as long as we remember this. This is the most important point. Once we become situated in Krishna consciousness, in original Krishna consciousness, then, please read with me, he became silent and grave. And because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes, and his hairs stood on end. So this is the second thing that happens. We become silent and we become grave. Silent doesn't mean we just don't speak. Silence means we speak everything about Krishna. If there's at all any discussions, Krishna is always in the center. If we have to speak about anything material to our children, about jobs and everything, we're always mindful of speaking in a sweet way. We speak in a way which will bring pleasure to the hearts of others. This is very important. Sarva Bhuta Anuranjana. That is what is stated in Bhagavatam. It is in the 4th canto, 8th chapter. Dhruva Maharaj's quality, Sarva Bhuta Anuranjana. A devotee is one who can bring peace. He brings pleasure to others. And he is so skilled in the art of pleasing that even if we were to speak about mundane topics, which families must do at home, right? It is still pleasing to the heart. It is not agitating. Okay, so this is a very important point. That is the meaning of silent. The next word besides silent is grave. Grave is translated in this shloka as dhiraha. Dhiraha. Dhiraha means to be sober. In other words, a devotee is not frivolous in his activities. A devotee understands everything in its place. There is a time for us to work. There is a time for us to be with family. But there must always be time for Krishna. The problem is most of us have time for our friends, our family, our society. But Krishna is always last. Always last. He's the last appointment of the day. Or if he's the first appointment, he's the hurried appointment. Let's get it over with. Let's get it over with and let's move on. Because I'm late for this, I'm late for that. It's like that. Sometimes if you want to sit down and read Bhagavatam, someone may say, Prabhu, I have a deadline, come on, let's hurry up and chant. You realize then that their heart is not in it, because their priority is not Krishna. But they think by running after other appointments, they will be happy. But in the end, they will be slapped. and they will not be happy. But they don't realize it at that point, you see. You know, in Bhagavatam, in Nectar Instruction, Srila Prabhupada says, there are 3 levels of wisdom. If you want to know how wise someone is, there are 3 levels. The most wisest person is one who listens, and when he listens, right, he accepts. He accepts it. The second person is one who listens, but he doesn't accept immediately, he wants to test it. So what happens is you tell him, there's a ditch there, don't go. And you'll fall into the ditch. The wise man will hear you and say, okay, I won't go. Right? The second man will say, all right, I will go and I will see. So he sees, there's a ditch now. So he understands it. But the foolish man is one who doesn't hear you at all. And the only time he will understand it is when he enters into the ditch. So we shouldn't be that level where we are told by our superiors, our seniors, our parents, our elder, that you please don't do something. But the foolish man or woman or living entity falls into the ditch and then comes to understand, what have I done? But even then, Bhagavatam tells us they are so proud with false ego, they cannot admit I'm in the ditch. They are talking to you from the ditch, but they cannot admit that I am actually in the ditch. This is the height of foolishness. So when you have dhira, when you are grave, Bhagavatam says, then what happens is we will understand what to do when and how to worship Krishna, and to understand that everything is temporary and we have to see things in perspective. This is gravity. So therefore you see, now 4 things that we know already. When we take darshan of the deity, what is the process we must do before darshan? Ikshana. We must ask the deities, please give us audience. Once the deity gives us audience with Ikshanam, the first thing that goes is material contamination. The second thing that comes after material contamination is what? We are situated perfectly, right, in original Krishna consciousness. When that happens, 2 things will come. We become silent. Now you understand the meaning of silent. Silent means we speak, but what we speak is always to the point of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, don't speak nonsense. And we are grave. We understand our situation in life. This is very important. And now we come to the last line. He became silent and grave. Please repeat. He became silent and grave. And because of love for the Lord, tears fell from his eyes. And his hair stood on end. This is a very difficult symptom to have, because this is a symptom of a great, great devotee. Sometimes devotees come and say, Prabhu, when I hear Bhagavatam, I just cry. But that doesn't mean that we are displaying ecstatic symptoms. You remember I told you the story of Srila Prabhupada, that Prabhupada said, this elderly lady was sitting for Bhagavatam and the sadhu was speaking, and he noticed she was just crying and crying. All the ecstatic symptoms were there. So after the Bhagavatam, he went to her and asked her, Mataji, you are displaying ecstatic symptoms of crying during Bhagavatam. Can I ask you, what are you feeling and what you're thinking? And she said, my dear sir, I just lost my goat. My pet goat, he died 2 days ago. And when I see you, sadhu, with your nice beard, I was reminded of my goat. And so as I was looking at you and you're talking Bhagavatam, I was thinking of my dear goat whom I was very attached to. And I kept crying and crying. So Prabhupada said that sometimes we may be crying in Bhagavatam, but the crying could be for our goat. It's not because of Krishna. It happens, you see, right? So we have to be very careful about that. So therefore, that is why we cannot make a show of the devotion. We just have to practice it. And last line, with great devotion and care, and with great devotion and love, he offered his respectful obeisances unto the original personality of Godhead. So imagine what should be the heart and our mentality if we offer obeisances. All of this must happen before we offer obeisances. That is real obeisances. Until then, other obeisances is just quickly go down, quickly come up, like burpees. That's exercise, right? Quickly go down, quickly come up, and we have done our obeisances. No. Our obeisances must be done with this meaning, with this meaning. Now I read to you the shortest purport, one of the shortest purports Prabhupada has written. But you can all actually repeat it because it is so short but so amazing. The word Tad Darshana Dvasta Samasta Kilbishaha is very important in this verse. If one regularly sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the temple, one will gradually be disinfected of all material desires simply by visiting the temple and seeing the deity. When one is freed from all the results of sinful activities, one will be purified. And with a healthy mind, completely cleansed, he will increasingly make progress in Krishna consciousness. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada says very nicely here that actually whenever we regularly see Krishna in the temple, this is a temple. This is a temple, right? We are feeling it. This is a temple. So when we regularly visit the temple and see the deity, then the result is there is disinfection. Whatever material desires you have, it is disinfected. It goes. That is why it's so important. In this Kali Yuga, the other day I was listening to His Holiness Lokanath Swami, and Lokanath Maharaj was saying, in Kali Yuga, Kali has appeared in the form of the handphone. Maharaj was saying, Kali has appeared in the form of the handphone. You know how many offenses do we have in the chanting of the holy names? 10. Then there's the 11th point we always say, right? The 10th one is the one where we say we should not be inattentive. So Maharaj said there is a 11th. The 11th is one should not look at one's phone when one is chanting the holy names of God. That's how bad it has become actually in this material world, isn't it? And even for the deities. Sometimes, we are taking so many pictures of the deities. Taking and taking and taking and taking. But only the phone is benefiting. But we are not capturing the deity in our hearts. How many pictures you want of the deities? Isn't it just better to capture the deity in our heart? That photograph can never go, isn't it? So it's so important for us to understand that this is how Kali will come. Kali will come in all these little things. That's why now it's happening in ISKCON. What's happening in ISKCON in many temples is they're asking us to deposit our phones outside. They're starting to do that. Deposit phones outside, come in, behave yourselves, listen. Because if you went to school, for example, do they allow you to take out your phone during class? They don't. They will not allow you to do that. But how much more important is it to look at Krishna and concentrate on Him? So it is a very important thing for us to do. In Malaysia particularly, I was in the retreat last week, and the devotees were telling us that in a lot of Malaysian ISKCON centers, for youth programs and children's programs, all the phones are taken. Because it is the most challenging thing for the youths of today. You can't blame them. They grew up on phones. They did. They had nothing else. They grew up. We didn't look at phones like the way they did. But we also have challenges. Besides the phones, we have gossip. That is our big challenge. We talk about others. In the presence of the deities also, we are very nice to the deities, but very bad to others. We are pleasing to the deities. Then we turn around and we shoot off at other people. Bhaktivinoda Thakur Maharaj says that is devotional service in the mode of ignorance. It is the lowest performance of devotional service. It will not attract the deities. So it's a very important thing. Let us take this commitment that we have so much time to do everything else. Let's do it. But when we are coming together as devotees to remember Krishna, let's give Krishna the priority he deserves. Don't you think so? Let's give the deities the priority that they deserve. Because without them, we will not be here. Without them, we will not even have happiness in our hearts, actually. And one more point that I want to share with you is that these principal deities of Sanatan Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and Raghunath Das Goswami, who are they? One, Sanatan Goswami's deity is Madan Mohana, right? There's that famous shloka. Jayakam surata upango mama manda matargati mat sarvasya padambojau radha mohana mohanau. This is a very important shloka. And in this shloka, the meaning is so nice. All glories to the most merciful Radha and Madana Mohana. And you know what is really nice? The word Pangor. The word Pangor. Sanatan Goswami is saying, right? He's using the word Pangor means lame. Right? It means lame in Sanskrit. I'm very lame, O Radha Madan Mohan. I'm so lame that I have so much of faults and so much of defects. Not only am I lame, I am Mama Mandar Gati, Mandar Matar Gati. That means I am very dull in my mind. I'm lamed and I'm ill-advised. I cannot even concentrate on Krishna for a moment. I'm so distracted by so many things. I have no vision to even concentrate on you. You know, just imagine your husband and wife talking to each other. And the moment the husband starts speaking, the wife does not even look at him. Turns here, turns there, walks here, walks there. I think after a while we do that, isn't it? They are talking to us, we are in the room. We are talking to them, they are here. Sometimes we are shouting, people just act blur. I remember in the house, whenever my mother's temperature was increasing, my father will open the newspaper. Right? Two things will open. Either he will go inside and turn on the TV, or he'll open the newspaper very big, so his face is hidden. So that's how communication is in the material world. But Sanatan Goswami is saying that Krishna, I am so lame, Pangor, Manda. My mind and my consciousness is not good. But I'm praying for one thing. I'm just praying that somehow or another, you give me this wonderful platform for re-establishing my relationship with you. This is known as Abhideya. Abhideya. And remember in the verse we chanted, we become situated in our original Krishna consciousness. That is Radha Madan Mohan's mercy. When Radha Madan Mohan gives us his mercy, then he will give us the ability to re-establish our relationship with Krishna. So therefore, Acharyas tell us the worship of Radha Madana Mohana is very important when we begin our devotional service. When we begin our devotional service, especially for neophyte devotees. It is very necessary, Srila Prabhupada says in Adi Leela of Chaitanya Leela, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Once you have established relationship with Krishna, then you have to grow that relationship. And you grow it on the platform of service. And that service mood comes through this mercy of Rupa Goswami's deities. And Rupa Goswami is the Acharya of that mood of, what is the next word after Abhideya? Sambandha. Right? There is now that connection. We establish a connection and we grow that connection. So that is a very important point actually. As we grow that connection, and on the platform of serving, this is how we engage with Radha. Why? Because Radha Govinda means to give pleasure to the cows and to give pleasure to our senses. And therefore, the only way we can actually get pleasure in this world is when we inculcate the mood of serving the deities. When we serve the deities, we will serve the devotees. See, all of us have come here to serve the deities today. How? By taking darshan of them. We have come to play mridanga, we have come to sing, play the harmonium. We've all come to do something for the deities and just be here to take ikshana and take darshan of the deities. All this is service. All this is service. And when Krishna sees this service, he actually becomes very happy. Very happy. So this is how Radha Madan Mohan and Radha Govindaji, they become enshrined in our hearts. Then finally, right, we come to the third platform of Krishna consciousness. And this is the manifestation of Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. Right? Gopi Jana Vallabha. Gopi Jana Vallabha. Krishna is actually the lover of all the gopis. And the gopis are all the lovers of Krishna. And on this stage, this is the stage of Prayojana. The Prayojana stage is considered to be the most advanced stage of connecting with the Lord. Because at this stage, your service mood is transformed into love for Krishna. It is actually transformed into love for Krishna. But this love for Krishna cannot come without service. And this service mood for Krishna cannot come without understanding who we are in relation to Krishna. So Matajis, I think we need to create a little bit of space. We are going to be receiving, right? So this is very important point. So please remember, Radha Madan Mohan, right, is the deity that gives us sambandha, relationship. Then after that, Radha Govinda gives us Abhideya. And finally, Radha Gopinath gives us Prayojana. These are the three steps for Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada says a really nice point in the Adi Leela. He says that Krishna is so kind, not only does he come in the form of deities to give us sambandha, not only does he give us Abhideya, not only does he give us Prayojana, but he also comes in the form of Guru in the same mode. Srila Prabhupada says that the Diksha Guru is the personal manifestation of Sri Sri Radha Madana Mohan. Jai Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Ji Ki Jai. So Radha Madana Mohana is the deity that actually comes manifested in the form of the Diksha Guru. It is the Diksha Guru who actually establishes the tattva or the signs of who you are in relation to Krishna. That is your sambandha. What is your connection to Krishna? That's the first point. Then after getting Diksha, you have taken Diksha now from a Guru. Now what does Guru give you? He gives you Siksha. He gives you instructions. The instructions of the Diksha Guru or the instructions from Siksha Guru is considered the manifestation of Sri Sri Radha Govindaji. Sri Sri Radha Govindaji is the manifestation of the Siksha Guru. Because he then goes on to tell you, now that you know what is your connection to Krishna, now what are you going to do about it? And what must you do? You must serve Krishna. So then he gives you that. And that's why Siksha Gurus are so important. Right? We may not even have Diksha at the moment, but Siksha is so important because they guide you. They tell you where to walk, how to walk. Sometimes they tell you, don't do this, but you must have the humility to hear them. You know, sometimes when you tell someone, please don't do this, is not good for you. If the person's pride is very big, they will not hear you. Actually, you don't lose. I mean, they don't lose, but you lose because you don't hear. So therefore, if we want to accept Radha Govindaji, we must pray to Radha Madan Mohan for the humility to accept Radha Govindaji. It's a very important point. So Diksha Guru is there, Siksha Guru is there, and finally, when both these deities are worshipped, then Srila Gopinath becomes the ultimate shelter and the ultimate destination. So actually the deities of Radha Gopinath, right, in Tattva especially, when we understand Siddhanta, they are actually very, very, very special. They are giving us, taste of Krishna consciousness. And they are giving us the highest taste, as the gopis had. Tavakathamritam tapta jivanam kavi viriditam kalmasapaham shravana mangalam shrimadatatam bhuvi granantiye bhuride janaham jayati tedikam janmana vraja shrayata indira Shashvaratrahi Daita Drishyata Dikshutavakas Tvaidrita Shavas Tvam Vichindate. Like there's so many beautiful songs the gopis sang to Krishna. And when they sang to him in this mood, they were in the mood of worshipping him as Gopinath. As Gopinath. So we are very fortunate, Prabhus and Matajis, that today we have come together to take darshan of Radha Gopinath. So please, one more point I want to share with you. Sometimes devotees say, they've always come to me after I give this lecture, Prabhu, my deity's name is not Radha Madan Mohan, not Radha Govinda, and not Radha Gopinath. So how? No sambandha, no abhideya, and no prayojana. How will Radha Venugopal give something? Radha Neela Madhav? Then how? Are we bereft of them? The secret to this is revealed in Shastras. Every form and deity of Krishna will have the mercy of sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana. Please remember that. Because Krishna is absolute in nature, our mind cannot grasp this concept. In Radha Gopinath, there is the presence of Radha Madan Mohan and Radha Govindaji. In Radha Vallabh, there is the presence of always Sambandha. There is always the presence of Abhideya. There will always be the presence of Prayojana. We don't have to worry what the deity is named. What we have to worry about is, are we acting on the mood of what we should be doing? You follow? This is the important thing. So don't be worried if suddenly, Sudarshan Prabhu will be starting to get requests. Prabhu, only Madan Mohan, Govinda or Gopinath. Otherwise exempted already. We're not exempt. We're not. Right? So this is very, very important. Are there any questions? Are there any points and realizations that devotees would like to raise? It's a very short time, but we try to cover as much of the Siddhanta of deities as we can. But you realize that Bhagavatam is immensely practical. If we're all alright, shall we start chanting Krishna's names? In this way, we will receive Krishna. Srila Prabhupada says that by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, by playing instruments in the favor of the Lord, by chanting His names, by clapping, by dancing, all the three Siddhantas of Vrindavan are manifest. All the three deities are manifest. Immediately by chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are established in original Krishna consciousness. Isn't it true? We are. So Sambandha is established. The moment we do that, this chanting is the highest service to mankind. So what is there? Abhideya is also there. Radha Govindaji is also there. And as we chant and chant and chant, love is established in our heart. Radha Gopinath is manifested. So you see, we are never bereft of deities. Now someone may come and ask, but Prabhu, I don't have Radha Krishna deities. How now? Isn't there a problem? Go Nitai, do they have these three tattvas? Do they have this Siddhanta? Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra. We have them in our center. That means no Sambandha, no Abhideya, no Prayojana. How? That is not true. Every deity form of Krishna, right, will always give us original Krishna consciousness. Every deity form of Krishna is absolute. It will give us this beautiful Abhideya, and if we worship them with love, they will give us Prayojana. Please remember that. And don't feel discouraged. And finally, if you come to us and say, we don't have deities, now how? It's okay. Because the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the manifestation of Krishna, non-different. Therefore, Krishna will always be present in Abhideya, in Sambandha, in Abhideya, and Prayojana. So let's chant Krishna's names then. So we'll have 10 minutes of offering. So we chant. Then after chanting that, we will have Arati. We will sing for a few minutes. Then I thought the best way after we finish that is to close out by singing the beautiful bhajan, right, of the glories of Vrindavan. Jayo Radhe, Jayo Krishna, Jayo Radhe. That will be a good way to end because we are receiving Krishna in our hearts. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, don't be distracted by the Boga, please. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe 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 Jai Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ji ki Jai. Is Gopinath's flute? Yeah. Namo. Please rise. It's our